Tell me something. What's the biggest animal you've ever seen in real life? An elephant maybe? A giraffe? Perhaps you've actually seen a blue whale. They're all pretty huge, but amazingly, these aren't the biggest animals to have ever existed. In fact, they're not even the biggest of their kind. So come with me as we take a look at the biggest animals that have ever walked the earth and what they were able to do. Titanoboa. Studies into phobias have loosely established that around half of all adults feel anxious about the snakes, with 2 to 3% of them meeting the criteria of a snake phobia. And to be fair, who can blame them when there are serpents like the 30-foot-long and 550-pound green anaconda out there? However, things could be a whole lot worse for those that get the snake shakers. You see, back around 60 million years ago, during the Paleocene period, the world was home to the biggest species of snakes ever discovered, the Titanoboa. From the name, I bet you think of a snake that can rear itself up above the tree line or that could take up the width of an entire road. And you're not far off. Based on fossils of a gigantic vertebrate discovered in Colombia, which you can see compared to a regular anaconda vertebrate, archaeologists believe these sizable serpents could grow to a hair-raising 42 feet, over 7 times the length of an average human. And if it reared up just half of its body, it would tower over you at the height of a 2-story building. Titanoboas also estimated to have weighed up to 2,540 pounds, which is as heavy as a small car and almost 5 times as heavy as a green anaconda. The good news? They weren't venomous. The bad news? They were constrictors. That's right, these 42-foot-long beasts got their meals by coiling around, crushing and asphyxiating whatever prey they could get their bodies on. Jeez. Thanks God these aren't still kicking around. I mean, could you imagine if one of these snakes slithered through a town? They'd have to call the army in. Yeah, these guys have certainly cemented their place as one of the world's largest animals. Arthropleura. For most people, the sight of a millipede crawling along the floor is enough to send chills down their spine. And if you're one of those people, you better thank God you weren't around 300 million years ago. Back then, during the Carboniferous period, a creature known as the Arthropleura lived on our planet. This enormous creature goes down as the largest ever terrestrial arthropod. How large? Well, based on fossils found in Northumberland, England, it's assumed these animals could grow to about 8.2 feet long. That's over 2 feet longer than your average human. Wanna know something that makes them worse? When threatened, it's been suggested that these big bugs could lift up their upper body like a cobra. However, paleontologists haven't been able to confirm this from fossil findings alone. Even so, can you imagine this thing rearing up and towering over you? On top of that, the Arthropleura's fossil indicate that it had a body mass of some 110 pounds. That makes it about the same weight as an average 14 years old human child. Oh my god, burn it with fire! For reference, the largest terrestrial arthropod alive today is the coconut crab. While these guys look horrifyingly huge in their own right, they're just 40% as long and less than 10% as heavy as the Arthropleura. Gigantopithecus blacki. Eastern lowland gorillas are the largest and most imposing living primates in the world. Full-grown males stand 5.5 feet upright, while their massive muscular bodies weigh as much as 485 pounds. Intimidating as these gorillas look, There once existed a primate that would have made even them nervous. Only tooth and jawbone remains of the Gigantopithecus blacki have been discovered to date, but they're so large that paleontologists estimate that this prodigious primate would have towered up to 10 feet tall and weighed a staggering 1,200 pounds. Sadly though, the Gigantopithecus blacki's formidable frame is what led to its downfall. While it was likely a herbivore, due to its size it would have depended on a large amount of food, like fruits, leaves, and forest plants. However, around 100,000 years ago, global warming meant more and more forested area turned into savanna landscapes, depleting the Gigantopithecus blacki's food sources. Elephant bird. Much like canines, birds also come in all shapes and sizes. From teeny tiny 2¼ inch bee hummingbirds, to gigantic ostriches that stretch up to 9 feet tall and weigh in at up to some 300 pounds. But while ostriches may top the scale for largest living bird, they are no match for one type of extinct feather fowl, known aptly as elephant birds. These flightless giants strutted around the island of Madagascar until they died around 1,000 years ago. And they weren't just big. For perspective, this is one of their eggs. These are the largest bird eggs ever found. Each one was in excess of 12 inches long and weighed up to a backbreaking 22 pounds, with a volume 150 times greater than a chicken's egg. In modern times, ostriches lay the largest eggs of any bird, yet they're only a seventh of the weight and half the height of the eggs of an elephant bird. But enough egg talk. How big were the birds themselves? Well, DNA from skeletal remains indicate that these flightless giants stood 10 feet tall, making them roughly a foot taller than the average ostrich. Okay, that's a little bigger, I guess, but with the largest bird of the species, Epirus maximus, clocking in at an ungodly 1,100 pounds mass, they were 4 times heavier than ostriches. Sarcosuchus imperator. In Niger, West Africa, there was once a species of crocodilian that didn't just rule the food chain here, it dominated it. Now modern-day saltwater crocodiles, like this one, ain't nothing to mess with. They can reach some 23 feet in length and weigh up to 2,650 pounds, the largest and heaviest living reptiles in the world. Although that's nothing compared to what was once known as the Sarcosuchus imperator, which lived during the early Cretaceous period around 112 million years ago. Based on skull and vertebrae fossils, paleontologists estimate these crocs grow up to 40 feet in length, while in terms of weight, they're likely to have packed on close to 9 tons. That makes these super crocs twice the length and nearly 8 times as heavy as the long, the 18 feet long and 2,350 pounds beast that was the largest crocodile ever held in captivity. If that wasn't fearsome enough, these abnormal amphibians had super long snouts too, filled with no less than 132 conical teeth, which were up to 6 inches long. Thanks to their bulky build and the fact that its teeth didn't interlock indicates to paleontologists that the Sarcosuchus imperator had the ability to ambush and prey upon anything that entered the water, whether it was giant fish or even dinosaurs. Paleoloxodon pneumaticus. It probably won't come as a surprise that the largest living land animal is the elephant. To be specific, the African elephant, with balls reaching a shoulder height of 13 feet and a whopping weight of 12 tons. But somewhere between 2.5 million and 11,700 years ago, during the Pleistocene period, it turns out there was an even more enormous elephant on the scene. Based on the discovery of a partial femur estimated to be some 6 feet 2 inches long, paleontologists have estimated that an ancient elephant known as Paleoloxodon pneumaticus was an imposing 17 feet tall at the shoulder, meaning they tower over any modern-day elephant. That would also make them taller than a T-Rex and human combined. On top of that, this bulky beast weighed in at a whopping 24 tons, making them well over twice as heavy as an African elephant. I mean, one look at the skull of these guys tells you just how gigantic really they were. And at a staggering 12 feet long, their straight tusks were twice the length of an average African elephant tusk. In fact, one tusk alone is estimated to have had a mass of 260 pounds, meaning it's more than 60 pounds heavier than average American adult human. All that crowns this ancient elephant as the largest land mammal to ever walk the earth. Man, that's going to be hard to forget. Which of these gigantic beasts impressed you the most? And have you seen any of the living ones in the flesh? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.